morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, the last of March. It's finally a little quieter here. The dumpsters had come by, dump trucks collecting from the dumpsters. And it always amazes me just how loud those get. This morning it reminded me of how at Girl Scout camp, back when I was program director for a Girl Scout camp, resident camp, we used to use "Do I hear dump trucks?" as kind of like a keyword over the radios to ask if we're hearing a thunderstorm coming. The whole idea, of course, was to make sure that the kids didn't hear storm or thunder, anything that might upset them. But I gotta say, now that I've heard the dump trucks come by a few times, I much prefer the sound of thunder. Yeah, I do not like the unsettling sound of the dump trucks. It tends to play on the nerves. Nice thunderstorm is much more calming. Okay, so this morning, I decided I was going to go back to what we talked about yesterday, millinery, because I had a question about the use of the millinery block. So I decided I was going to go through the whole process of how we go from straw all the way up to bonnet or hat. Okay? Let's see if I can get all the way through this similar to how I would do it when I'm doing a demonstration. Okay. So I have with me some samples here, and this is how I'm going to attempt to show you. There might be a better way to do this, but we're just going to wing it. Okay, so I want you to first look here. This is a piece of straw, okay? Now this straw could be wheat or rye. Aha, I knew somebody fell off of there. Okay, so you have a straw that's wheat or rye. Okay? And it does. It looks like an actual straw, maybe half the size of the straw that we tend to use for drinking, okay? Maybe the size of the straw that you would use for stirring your coffee, but of course we are cutting back on those. Now this straw could be wheat or rye. It's grown in a field, much like they do now. The difference is being this straw, the goal would be to have long shafts, a lot of space in between the elbows of a crop. Compared to now, the goals are for feed, for our consumption, large heads but short shafts. Shorter shafts make larger heads. It's my understanding. But for the, please don't do that. I'm getting attacked from behind the curtain. Okay. Lost my train of thought. All right, so we want long shafts because we want to be able to have long strands of braid before they're cut. Now each strand could be cut into many pieces lengthwise. This one fell off, so I can bring this up for you to see. Okay, might be a little difficult. A single straw could be split with metal blades lengthwise into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. The narrower the pieces that are cut, the finer the braid is going to be. Not right now. I know I'm talking. Clara wants to say hi, everyone. Okay, so the narrower the pieces, the narrower and finer the straw plate will be. Now, I don't know if you can see, but one side of this is shiny and one side of this is matte. On some 19th century braids, they would make use of the shiny and the matte sides. And on others, they would sandwich the two together. It's called a Dunstable plate, and you'd just have shiny. If we go back to my little box, yes, it was a tea box. Okay, you can see 3 different widths of braid over here. The first one is quite fine, and that's about the same width as the original straw was. And then the next 2 are slightly bigger, okay? Each of these would have been done by hand, okay? And they actually would have been braided by children. Pull up a picture of that. All right, where is the good children picture? We want them upright. All right, so here is an illustration of children braiding at a plate school. Okay. And we have a nice color painting as well. Now, plate schools were more prominent over in England, where the system worked a little bit differently than how it works here. You can notice in this painting, that girl's quite young. I would put her at 3 or 4, and then the one on the floor a little bit younger. Now, if we keep in mind, currently, our kids tend to learn how to use scissors and crayons around preschool, kindergarten age. These children were much younger than that, so they're using scissors, knives, and doing the very fine work of the braiding. You know how I said there was a little difference between England and here? In England, straw went to a straw market. Here in the U.S., the cottage industry always connected with a single source straw factory. So here in the U.S., the straw would be brought out to the home, and then it would be braided. And depending on what your agreement was, a representative would come back, collect that braid, bring you new straw to braid, and then take the braided straw to someone who's sewing. So this is what braid is going to look like when it's finished. Now, this, of course, is 21st century Hanks. The straw then was kept a little looser. There you go. You can see some loose braid there. But really, it was kept in smaller bundles. The closest image I have to show you that would actually be this early 20th century image. Okay. All right, so the children have braided the straw. Maybe some women have braided the straw. It's gone to the next person who's doing the sewing. Let me close this. That is where this type of block that we talked about yesterday comes in, okay? Remember the plaster block from yesterday? So the women would be sewing on that plaster block to get the shape. So the block itself is like the template or the pattern. And here is the best image for that. Simple illustration. I'm going to zoom in here. So you can see on her lap, she has the plaster block. Her straw is hanging down below, and she is sewing the hat on top of the block and coaxing the straw into the shape that the block is telling her to go. Okay? We can compare that on the other side of the picture. You can see there's a woman sewing a bonnet on a block, and on the table behind her is another block that may be a hat or a bonnet block. Okay. And then down below, let's just go like this. You can see the children who are doing the braiding. So this illustration does show you each of the stages there for both hat and bonnet. I can show you this image here, which is an occupational image. Okay. On the right-hand side is a woman with a millinery block, very similar to the one that I have. And it is accompanied by a hat that I do not believe was made on this block. I think that hat is a different shape. All right. So after she has sewn several hats or several bonnets, it would just be the straw itself. There's going to be no wiring, no shaping, no permanent shaping on a piece. She would have an assortment of them, several of the same, I mean, ready for pickup, and a representative from the straw factory would come out, pick them up, and potentially bring another block, but at least bring more straw for her to work with. She would be paid by the number that she had sewn and their quality. And then those pieces would go back to the factory where they would get wired. There'd be a wire edge. They would have the sizing done and the final blocking done. That's what really stiffens a bonnet or a hat. And then once they're dry, they can go off to the millinery shop. And milliners tend to buy in quantity. They could buy a dozen of each style, 3 dozen of each style. And then they would do the finishing and the decorating. Now, there are fancier pieces, of course. Let's go back to the box. Now, you know those little straw threads that split straw that I showed you? If those are done very finely, let me bring this over. Can you see that? Down here is what's called a straw thread. This is actually an antique straw thread. And those are narrow strands of straw twisted onto themselves and then twisted together again. And those could be made into motifs like this up here, or this is what was used for crocheting. Or doing the really pretty knot work that you see on some of the fancier bonnets. And that, of course, can get paired with other motifs as well. Most of those fancier designs do need a little more wiring foundation. You might find net inside, as opposed to braid or plait that is lined, but the structure really comes from the straw. The fancier things sometimes need a little more support. So that's basically from straw all the way to bonnet, how the process really works. I hope that answered some questions. There are different blocks along the way. There's the block that's used as the template for the piece by the straw sewer. And then there's the block that's used for the final shaping in the factory. And that block's going to have to withstand hot steam, water pressure over and over and over again to get the right shaping. Am I missing any little piece? I hope not. If I am, go ahead and ask and I'll see if I can fill that in. My goal for tomorrow or Thursday is to have another little project. I haven't decided which one yet, but I know a lot of people are enjoying those short single day projects. So I'll come up with something fun and share that with you. If you have any questions, of course, just ask and we'll see what we can do, okay? Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.